Alright, so you guys asked me to make a... Not you guys, David asked me to make a video on how I sharpen knives. I already started this one a little bit, but I'll tell you that this is a really dull knife. You can see I'm running my finger right along the blade. It's not cutting me. So you can see how dull it is, and I'm going to try to take this to a real sharp edge. Here at the beginning, I'm just kind of going to go as fast as I can because we have so much material to take off of this blade before it's sharp. This isn't a fast process, guys. Getting a knife like this sharp is going to take, 45 minutes or so. I am on my 400 1000 grit stone. I am on the 400 side, which is the side that is, I don't know, grittier. If that's how to describe it, a more coarse side. I wouldn't recommend you go this fast. You want to go a little slower so you can make sure that the bevel, you're staying right flat with the edge. So you want to stay right even with that bevel. I don't even know if you can, how well you can see that, but that bevel, let's see, that's not it. There we go. So that bevel right on the edge, you want to stay right on that. So I took my father-in-law's knife because he didn't have any sharp knives. We had given him some knives a couple of years back for Christmas. Actually, he won them at a Christmas party. It was like 2 years ago. And so recently I was at his house and using that knife, and he still thought it was plenty sharp. When we did a little paper test, he realized it wasn't sharp at all. I brought that knife home and got it sharp in about 10 minutes, but it was already kind of pretty sharp. So I wanted to show him my knife sharpening skills, so I also brought home a little cheapy kitchen knife that he had, so I could get that one sharp for him. And so this is me doing that. This is a nice knife. I like the length of it. It's not a nice knife. It's a cheapy. This is an HEB knife, I'm pretty sure. And so it's a cheap knife, but I like the size of the blade. And if it's sharp, it'll do a lot of work on some chicken. It's a good knife for fajitas and cutting beef, pork, ribs, things like that when you're getting them ready. I think the blade is the right length. This is actually the knife that has become my favorite knife, and it's actually pretty dull, but you can see that it cuts through paper way better than this other knife. This paper is a little wet. Well, if it weren't so wet, you'd be able to see that it cuts through paper really easy. Nothing like the knife before. This knife simply won't go through paper. But it's right on the edge there, and it won't do it. This other knife, and again, this is probably an HEB knife too. I use it for deboning chickens, and it is. And this knife is kind of dull too. I haven't sharpened it in a little bit. You can see compared to our last knife, nothing happening. This one's getting a little bit better. And so we're gonna keep on going. Yeah, you couldn't really see me on the stone there for a minute. Sorry about that. I like to keep the stone wet. You want to keep that stone nice and wet. I like to look at the knife to see kind of what progress we're making. Yeah, I put on a little weight, but it's 2020. I'm taking it off. I like to check the knife to see what kind of progress I'm making, and the way that I tell, and I'm not using very high-res cameras or anything, but the way that I tell is that you can see scratch marks on the bevel of the edge. I'm sure it's not zooming in properly, but right on the bevel you can see some scratch marks. And so I look at those scratch marks to see how even they are, and that'll tell you kind of what's happening. I'll tell you this is starting to get a little bit of a better of an edge, but I'll tell you I can look at it. You want to apex, meaning you want to get the knife so it's, you know, it's like that. And I can tell you that I can still see that the apex on this knife is pretty much round. It is starting to sharpen up a little bit, but not anywhere what we want. So we're just going to keep on trucking. Probably have another 20 minutes on this knife before it's where we want it to be. So basically what we're doing is we're getting that edge, we're trying to get it flat, and we're trying to create what's called a burr on the edge. And you can feel the burr. Once you make it, you can feel it because it feels like it's going, it feels like it's going over on one side. That's the burr, right? So when you apex, the burr is a tiny piece of metal that comes over on one side. Then you flip it over and you get rid of that burr as you're sharpening the other side of the knife. Right now, we're not really too concerned with the burr. We will get there in a minute. Right now, there's a lot of material to take off of this knife before it's going to be sharp. I'm no expert, so if there's something that I'm doing wrong, you guys should definitely comment. I've been sharpening knives for the last probably 4 months, 3 months, 3.5, 4 months. And I've gotten my knives pretty sharp enough to where they can cut paper easily, sharp enough that they do everything I want in the kitchen. But I'll be honest with you and tell you that what I'm really trying to figure out how to do is get them razor sharp, shave my arm sharp, and I haven't been able to get not one of my knives that sharp. So knife sharpening is a work in progress. It's something you have to, if there's feel to it. Way better if you have some music going, but didn't seem very conducive to the video. Just checking out the edge of the blade. That looks pretty nice. will tell you that this stone is a $14 stone, and I'm not exactly sure what it is about sharpening knives on this stone, but it creates towards the base of the blade, creates a little bit of a weird angle just towards the base, nowhere else. So it's a little frustrating. I think it has something to do with the corners, but since it's at the base of the blade, it doesn't bother me too much. I don't really know how much cutting is happening at that base of the blade. I turn the stone every now and then. You can see all that all that down there. That's steel that's come off of this blade and run off the sides of the stone. So we've taken off plenty of material off the blade, but we're not there yet. Not even close. You can get lots of YouTube videos on sharpening knives. This isn't really going to be as instructional as all of those. And those videos talk a lot about making sure you have the right angle and how to get that angle. Kind of do it by feel. And as you're taking material off the knife, you can definitely see if you're getting a good angle or not, and try to adjust. Once I get more material off of this knife, you're going to see me kind of take a different approach. Right now I'm using all arms, but as I start to get deeper into the process, you'll see me move my body more so that I can get a really even, so I can stay really even on the blade. This arm, moving in the arm approach, I think it allows for a lot of changing in the angle. I'm going to shut up and get to work, and so y'all can see, because this video is turning into a long video. Yeah, it's starting to get sharper now. We still got a long ways to go. So the edge is starting to come. We're getting closer. How close? You see that? Some of this is getting wet from my fingers, but you can see in 20 minutes, a little sharper. That was terrible. So I think what we have is the center parts of this knife are a little bit sharper. So we're gonna keep on going. We're getting closer for sure. Try to use as much of the stone as you can. So I can feel the knife getting sharper. And so now we're going to go into kind of a cadence where we go evenly on both sides. So we're going so I'll show you. We're gonna go full blade of the knife. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 12 times on each side. It's a little bit harder doing it this way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going to do it again. We're going to go 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. It's harder on this side. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so you probably won't be able to see, but there are some scratches on the blade. Now you can see these scratches here, but there's very similar. I didn't make those; those came with the blade. But there's very similar scratches on the bevel of the blade. And so now we flip over our stone, and we're going to the smoother side. 1000 grit is not still very smooth, but it's really, when you put your hands on it, you can really tell the difference. But we're going to start all over, take the scratches off, and then we're going to repeat the whole process. So back to work. And this one's taken off stone too. I mean material. You can see the dark color on the water. That's steel that's coming off of my blade. Sounds kind of stupid, but I really like sharpening the knives. It's very gratifying when you take a knife that's not very sharp, and at the end you can slice through paper and a tomato, and when you're working on beef, breaking down chickens, it's very gratifying when you're working with a sharp knife. On top of that, sharp knives drastically reduce kitchen accidents. So I really like sharpening knives. One of the reasons I like sharpening knives is because the quiet, the solitude just feels good. You know, you're all by yourself, you're working on it with just you and the blade. And it might sound stupid to some people, but I think it's really gratifying, rewarding to be sharpening the knife and you know, just be working on the steel. So I enjoy it. Oh, that water's cold. I enjoy it. Something I do by myself. Nobody else here in the kitchen with me. Just time for quiet, peace. Here's Sophie saying hello to all the family and friends that are watching. And yes, I'm still recording this video. 40 minutes strong.
Dad.
What?
It's a knife.
See, Sophie doesn't understand.
You don't.
This generation, this generation doesn't understand the internal reward of hard work and seeing your progress.
I know what hard work is.
Do you?
I write a story all the time. Yes, I do.
You are writing a story, and it's
hard.
a wonderful story. It is hard. It's hard if you keep writing. Yeah,
And
so that's hard.
I
But it's
just
not
don't
the same. You don't think what?
That you need 35 minutes and 25 seconds to sharpen a knife.
It takes way longer than that, Missy. I'm not even done yet.
Your friend, I forgot his name.
David.
David. Wanted a video. Do you think he's gonna watch the whole thing?
I do think he's gonna watch the whole thing. You should give him here. We're at 35, 36 minutes in. Why don't you give him some sort of test, and I'll see if he watched the whole thing by asking him. What's the code word? Let's give him a code word.
Trick.
Trick?
Trick.
All right. So David, if you watch the whole thing, I want you to comment with the word trick. Sophie does not think you're going to watch the whole thing.
I didn't say I wouldn't think you didn't watch the thing. I just said if I was interested in knives, even if I was interested in knives, I would watch 35-minute videos.
You watch 35-minute videos of people reacting to other people watching videos.
Yeah, because that's interesting.
This is way more interesting. All right, exit stage left. Say goodbye.
Bye.
To all of the friends on Facebook.
Wait, you're making a Facebook video?
Yeah, it's going to go on Facebook.
Good luck.
I'm getting a little tired. Not gonna lie. But I'm fairly pleased with how the knife is looking. And it's feeling sharp again. Testing that off camera. You'll see it in a minute. All right, so we're gonna go down to our countdown. 2. So that's 12 times on each side is what we're going to do. I lost count, so that could have been 11 or 12, but I'm not going to start over because I'm past midnight and I'm tired. There's 10. We're on 8. We're on 6. We're on 4. And now we're going to do 2 on each side a couple of times. All right, so I don't always do this, but this knife has some discoloration on it, so I'm just going to grind down the sides of it a little bit. This is not on the edge. This is not on the edge. This is just on the stainless steel part to take off some of that nasty old steel. Does this scratch up your blade? It sure does. But I don't care. It's something I do with my blades. It dulls them, but it reminds me that I'm using them. It doesn't dull them, I'm sorry. It just puts some, you know, some wear on the edges, but it takes away those little marks that have rust on them. All right, it's time to strop, so I'll be right back. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Alright, so it's leather strop time. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see what I'm doing here. You might be able to, you might not. Hopefully this video catches this. I'm literally using my belt. Just using my belt. That's my leather strop. One thing about the leather strop is that you don't want to have your edge, you don't want to have it too much of an angle. If you turn that angle, it's going to take off the sharpness of your blade. So, and because leather is, you know, it gives, even if you have it at the exact angle of your bevel, it's going to take off some of that blade. So I go at a shallower angle and put a pretty good fair amount of pressure. And this is literally just my belt. And I do it even every time. This polishes the edge, but believe it or not, this also does some sharpening. You don't have to use a leather belt. You can use any piece of leather. You can also make a strop. There's stuff that you can paint onto a little board, and it's just you buy it at a hardware store. And it's material that's for stropping knives. All right, let's see how we did. I always use this notepad. I don't know why, but I always use paper out of this notepad, so I'm going to pull paper out of this notepad. And let's see how sharp our knife is. No more wet paper, so this should be a good test. When we started, couldn't even go through so that's your sharpening video, David. And you can see the knife is now at a point that if I ran that on my hands, it would cut my hand pretty good. Alright. So that's me signing off with a sharp blade. Not sure how much you can see on there. But that's going to cut through anything. Pretty sharp there. All right. Thanks, guys.